Awesome. Well, welcome in everybody. We're just getting started here with one of our live events for Video Overnight. Going to be going over some financial aid topics today, talking about lots of different things, going over a general award, talking about scholarships and grants, how do loans work, what about work study, and really just diving into some of those questions that you have. We're going to wait a couple of minutes, let some people log in and get started. It looks like there's attendees already getting ready to go here. But we'll wait, 2-3 minutes or so until everyone gets here to really dive into it. Down at the bottom of your screen, there is a Q&A button. So if you have questions, please feel free to use that button. Ask away anything that, you have questions on. We'll try to get to those during the session. And if we don't, we'll make sure they get answered by your admission counselors moving forward. Like I said, a couple more minutes as people just start to log on and everything else. Yeah. So Kelly, during all this time spent at home, what are some things you've been doing, especially with the nice weather the last couple of weeks you've been having?
So I've been running a lot more.
Awesome.
Since I'm not able to go to the gym. So that's been good, kind of increasing my pace and my miles.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Now I've been able to do the same. Luckily, living in a neighborhood, living next to a high school, so having those kind of grounds to run around and everything else has been super helpful. But trying to mix it up with different runs. I don't go super far, 2.5, 3 miles is probably good enough. But between that and trying to do some sort of workouts, I don't necessarily have weights like I wish I did back at the gyms, but it's nice to be able to use different random objects that I'm finding in the backyard.
Pull up on a tree.
Yeah, actually I have done that. Luckily we have big trees in the backyard. Lots of random, bricks and stones that are hanging out. So at first I was very lost, but now it's like, oh, there's lots of things you can be doing.
Yeah.
And that's really helped.
Our front yards, my front yard is kind of raised. And so I've been using that to do like pistol squats and I'll put my feet up on it and do like a feet raised push up.
Yeah.
So the front yard is like my little
I think it's really cool. And there's so many people who are, offering free sessions, Instagram, YouTube, different apps, all kinds of stuff. So a lot of stuff is accessible right now for anyone who was doing things normally or anyone that, now wants to kind of start it up and that kind of stuff. But okay, it looks like pretty much everyone who has signed up or is looking to be here right now has signed in and ready to go. So go ahead and get started. My name is Brady Daly. I'm one of the admission counselors out of the Office of Admission at PLU. Work with a lot of local students. Some of you here, I might be your counselor, but I'll kind of be in this position to help, facilitate some questioning and be here to help answer some of those. And I'll let Kelly introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kelly Lauderdale. I'm one of the assistant directors in the Office of Student Financial Services, and I work with students, all the students who need help with their financial aid. So I may meet with some of you and your families as we're approaching the fall semester.
Yeah, for sure. So again, just another reminder, if you have questions, please use that Q&A box. Put your questions there. We'll definitely try to get to them as best as we can, or answer them by the end or after this video is done. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Well.
Yes. We can go ahead and get started.
Okay. So we're going to talk about financial aid, and we're going to use a couple different examples of financial aid awards, and hopefully you've received your financial aid award from PLU. So look at a couple different scenarios, students living on campus versus students living at home, and some different expected family contributions. So we're going to talk about costs, excuse me, scholarships and grants, student loans, how they work and how you accept them, and then some other points of interest on the award letter. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm just going to start with a student who's planning to live on campus who has a 0 EFC. Now, in the student financial aid world, we use lots of little acronyms for things. So we have to catch ourselves and make sure that everybody knows what we're talking about. The EFC is the expected family contribution, and this is the amount that the Department of Education has determined that a family can apply towards the student's expenses, towards their education, their expected family contribution. If you're a WASP filer, you would have an MFI, which is median family income. But we'll talk more about that later. So looking at this award letter, this student, the first thing on here is the tuition and the fees. So the tuition itself is $45,440. And then you have some additional fees on there. Technology fee, student activity fee, the wellness plan, the DJS, Diversity, Justice, and Sustainability fee. I'm missing one, aren't I?
The matriculation fee.
The matriculation fee.
Yeah.
So all those fees are in there, and that's $46,850. I believe you can see my cursor. This student is planning on living on campus, so we have a housing and meal plan included. So the total costs due to PLU are $58,000. This number down here, this $61,810, this is something we get a lot of questions about. This is the cost of attendance. So the cost of attendance includes the direct expenses and the indirect expenses associated with attending college. So the direct expenses are the ones that the university bills you for, that $58,000, your tuition, fees, housing, and meals. But students have a cost of transportation, getting themselves around town. They have personal expenses. They need to buy books and supplies towards their education. So these are all things that you know that a student needs. The university doesn't personally charge you for, but they make up a budget. And that cost of attendance is the budget. And that helps us determine the maximum amount of financial aid that a student potentially could receive. So with the next box here is scholarships and grants. This is money that typically does not have to be repaid. So it's our favorite kind of financial aid to get, I think. But the first thing the student has on here is their 25,000 PLU academic scholarship. And you'll see that they've split that then over fall and spring. And that's how students will be billed as well. There'll be a fall and a spring bill. So these costs the aid gets split half and half, and the cost will as well. This student is a FAFSA filer, and with a 0 EFC, they're eligible for the maximum amount of the federal Pell Grant, which is $6,345. If they had a higher EFC, they may receive less Pell Grant, or with an even higher EFC, maybe none. This student is also eligible for some state aid, the Washington State College Grant. Also, they're receiving the maximum amount in the Washington College Grant. I forgot to mention the federal SEOG. That stands for the Supplementary Educational Opportunity Grant. Anyone who receives Pell will receive some amount in the SEOG. And the student is also receiving a housing scholarship because they're planning on living on campus. So this number here, 45,584, is the total amount of the scholarships and grants that the student has received. Now let's look at a student who has a slightly higher EFC and just see how that looks different. So their tuition and their fees are exactly the same amount there, the same for the housing and the meals. And in fact, their cost of attendance is the same amount due to the university. This student is receiving a slightly higher PLU academic scholarship. This is just a hypothetical. So this student was just eligible for a little bit more there based on their academic merit. They're also receiving the PLU housing scholarship because they're planning on living on campus, but then they're receiving the PLU Q Club scholarship, which we did not see on the last award. The PLU Q Club scholarship, it has that little asterisk next to it, and the asterisk denotes a need-based award that requires a FAFSA or WASFA filing to receive it. So with a $12,000 EFC, the student doesn't qualify for that Washington State Need Grant or the federal Pell Grant or SEOG, but they're receiving a little bit of institutional money from PLU to try and help close that gap a little bit. So they're getting $2,562 in the Q Club scholarship. So their total grants and scholarships is $34,062. Now I want to go back to our 0 EFC student. Clicking around, there we are. So I just want to point out again, if I didn't make it clear the first time, that in order to be eligible for things like the federal Pell Grant and the Washington State College Grant, students have to file a FAFSA or a WASFA. And so that's going to be asking for information. And many of you have probably already filed this about your taxes and your income and your household size. And those have to be submitted and filed every year. How are we doing on time?
We're looking good.
Okay. No outside scholarships yet. So for this student, after their scholarships and their grants have been applied, their costs due to PLU are $12,416. Should we look at the student who's living at home?
Yeah, if we want to go ahead and check out that student real quick.
Yeah. Starting from the top, this is a student who's going to be attending just the same, but they're going to live at home and commute. So for some of you, that may or may not be an option depending on where you live. But if that is something you decide to do, you'll notice that this student is, for their costs, they only have the tuition and fees, that $46,850. They are not being charged for a housing or meal plan. And you'll also notice that their cost of attendance is a little bit different. For those on-campus students, it was $61,180, but here it's a little bit less. The budget is less because the assumption is that if the student is living at home with their family, then they're receiving assistance from their family and they're probably not paying rent or a whole lot and not having to pay utilities and large grocery bills. So their overall expenses are a little bit less than someone who is living on campus. Now, whether a student lives at home or not has no bearing on their eligibility for the federal Pell Grant and the Washington State College Grant in terms of filing and being able to receive that. And it also doesn't affect the amount of academic scholarship they receive either. The students also has a $25,000 academic scholarship. They're a 0 EFC, so they're getting the max Washington State College Grant, the maximum Pell Grant, and that SEOG in there as well. So after their scholarships and grants have been applied, their total costs to the university are $4,766. So at this point, for all three of these hypothetical students, they could choose to just pay this amount out of pocket or do a monthly payment plan or whatever else they had planned for their college expenses. But the next box here is covering another part of your financial aid offer, and that's your student loans.
Kelly, real quick, if I could pause you before you move on to the loans, just a real quick question. Could you help explain the difference between the Washington State College Grant, the Pell Grant, and the SEOG Grant?
Sure. The Washington State College Grant is state aid from the state of Washington. If you are a Washington resident and a FAFSA filer, you just file your FAFSA, and if you are eligible for the Washington State College Grant, then you would receive it. If you're a Washington State resident and you're a WASFA filer, then you're applying to receive the Washington State College Grant. The federal Pell Grant and the federal SEOG are federal funds coming from the U.S. Department of Education. So they're coming from the U.S. government. Am I covering it for you?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. That's what I was looking for, so thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, loans. Love them, hate them. They're a part of life for many of us. So, how do loans work? First of all, the student loans that are on the financial aid award are federal direct student loans. They're being offered directly to the student from the U.S. Department of Education. So you would have to be a FAFSA filer in order to be eligible to be offered these loans. You're not obligated to accept them. You're welcome to decline them if you want. If you are a WASPA filer, you're not going to be eligible for these loans, so you may not see them on your award. So the loans, trying to think about how I want to say this. All right. So the first thing I want to point out about these loans is that there is a maximum amount that a student can borrow, depending on if they're a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. So as an incoming freshman, the maximum amount of federal loan that a student can possibly borrow in a single year is going to be $5,500. For this particular student, they're being offered a federal direct subsidized and a federal direct unsubsidized loan. And you'll notice that the subsidized loan has that little asterisk there. When we see an asterisk, we know that it means it's a need-based fund. So it is possible if you have a higher EFC that you may only be offered $5,500 in the unsubsidized loan. The difference between these loans is that the subsidized loan does not accrue any interest while the student is enrolled at least half time. And the unsubsidized loan does accrue interest. And the interest rates on these can range from, like, I don't have the numbers currently in front of me, but let's say about 3.5 to 3.9%. So they're not huge interest rates. If there's any financial gurus tuning in or any parents who are interested in that. So it's a total of $5,500 split between the subsidized and the unsubsidized loan. If a student decides to accept all or a portion of these loans, they're automatically in a state of deferment, meaning that repayment is not required until the student graduates, were to leave the university and not enroll someplace else, or to drop below half-time enrollment. Now, as a federal direct student loan borrower, you always have the right to pay early, pay off at any time if you want to. So if a student wants to make regular or even intermittent payments while they're enrolled, they can absolutely do that and help knock down these loans before they even graduate, which is a great thing to do. You want to know more, come see me. So that is the main thing about how these loans work. How do you accept them? They're going to be in an offered state on your award. You would need to log into your Banner self-service to go ahead and accept or decline these loans. I have to read the steps. I'll just go through it really quickly, but if you need help, either your admissions counselor or someone in Student Financial Services can help you navigate accepting or declining your loans. But in Banner Self-Service, you're going to go into Financial Aid Award, Award Aid, Award by Aid Year, and then go into the current aid year, which is 2021. And within there, you're going to accept your award offer. And then you choose to accept or decline the loans from there. You could accept just the subsidized and decline the unsubsidized. If you tried to decline the subsidized and take the unsub, we would probably say, hey, let's do it the other way because the subsidized would be the more desirable loan. I forgot to mention up above with your scholarships and grants, because those are gift aid and money that you don't have to repay, those are automatically accepted for you. You do still have to kind of go in and accept your aid award and acknowledge it, but you don't have to do anything special to accept those. Okay, the Parent Plus loan is also on here. The Parent Plus loan is for a parent or really any adult who has credit and wants to help finance a student's education. So it could be an aunt or a very concerned next door neighbor, it could be anybody. But it does require a separate application, and you go through studentloans.gov to submit that application. At that point, the applicant would either be accepted or declined for the loan. If they were accepted, the borrower could borrow more than $4,000. They could borrow up to the total cost of attendance for the student. So those plus loans can get quite large, but they don't have to be. It could be less than $4,000 also if you didn't want to take the $4,000. The reason why we have it place marked at $4,000 on your award offer is because if the applicant is declined for that Parent Plus loan, the student would automatically become eligible for an additional $4,000 in the unsubsidized loan, the one that does accrue interest. But that can sometimes be really helpful to students closing the gap between their financial aid and their costs due.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, and one last thing about loans is that if you were to decide to decline your loans right now, but then you decided as we get closer to the billing date that you need or want a portion or all of your student loans, you can always contact Student Financial Services and request to have those reoffered. Even if you didn't need it until the spring semester, you can reach out to us then and ask to have that loan reoffered. If you accepted your student loans today after this and you decided, in early August that you don't want them, you can decline it. You can contact our office and say, actually, I don't want that. And there would be no interest or anything on that at that point. And even after the loans pay to your account at the start of the semester, you have 14 business days that you can ask to have that loan returned without any interest. Even after that point, if you said, I don't want this loan, we can still return it. There could be a little bit of an interest charge on there. But all this to say, you have a lot of flexibility in your student loans. You really only need to reach out to my office and let us know what you want to do, and we'll help you out.
Awesome. It looks like we had a question really quick from Mara. She was wondering if the Parent Plus loan is subsidized or not.
That's a really good question. It's unsubsidized.
Okay. Very good clarification on that one. And it also looks like the interest rates for the loans, Parent Plus, is about 7.08.
Yes.
And the student loans are closer to 4.5.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you for correcting me.
Yeah. So, but some of the information is, I believe, on the website, on the Student Financial Services website, that you can find that. And so, if you have students' parents, if you're curious about that, then definitely some information is on there for you. Real quick, I wanted to touch on what is this little PLU pledge box, and why is it there. Majority of students, you'll see this on your financial aid award. For anyone that's an intended nursing major, you will not. So basically what this is, in a nutshell, it's a kind of a safety net to help students pay back their loans after school's done. So you may have actually already signed up for this program. You may have heard it called LRAP or PLU Pledge, but essentially what happens is you sign up for this free program. You come to PLU, start taking your classes, of course, and if you have to take out any student loans, this is what the program is here for. After you graduate and you start to pay off those minimum payments at the very least, if you're making less than $45,000 per year, you do need to be working full time. But if your salary is under that 45 grand mark, then there's going to be some sort of reimbursement coming your way based on how much money you're making. So if you're making about $20,000 for your salary, you're essentially going to get 100% reimbursement for your student loans. If it's closer to $40,000, it's going to be very little reimbursement, but there will be something coming your way. There's really good information on our website at plu.edu. You can really easily type up PLU Pledge and find it. But it is there truly as a safety net. It's a win-win scenario. So if you need help, we want to offer that help to you to keep you on your feet or get you on your feet after school's done. If you don't need the help, if your first job you're making $50,000 or $60,000, the idea is you have money to pay for rents, pay for utilities and food and live your life, phone bill, car insurance, right, all those things, and also still pay your minimum loan payments per month. So if you haven't signed up for it, I'd highly encourage you to do so. If you've already done it, then great. But if you have questions beyond that, definitely reach out to your counselor, your admission counselor, because we can help you walk through that process and understand it a little bit better, though.
I know we're getting close in on time. I do want to mention real quickly, at the bottom is work study. So the benefit of work study is just a student has a job and they get paid for that job into their personal bank account like any other position that they might hold. But any earnings that they earn as a work study student are considered need-based employment when it's reported on their FAFSA. So it doesn't go towards increasing that student's EFC when they eventually report that income. So that's really the benefit of utilizing work study. At PLU, we participate in the federal work study program, which is on-campus jobs, and the state work study program, which are off-campus jobs, which a lot of people sleep on state work study, and they could be really great positions. If you are not work study eligible, that does not mean that you can't have a job on campus. You absolutely can. You can search for positions on campus and off campus on the student employment website. Just to give a plug for state work study, sometimes those positions can pay a little bit better than minimum wage, and oftentimes they can be related to a student's field of interest. So it could potentially be a resume builder, making contacts and getting some real workplace experience. And student employment has lots of information about options there. So don't discount it just because they're off-campus jobs. Take a look if you're eligible. Your award letter will also have your EFC down here, just for point of reference.
Awesome. No, I'm really glad that you touched on work study there. We did have a number of questions from students and families. So at this point, with everything that's going on in the world, economic issues currently happening, how might students ask for additional aid in case their parents or families are kind of being affected by what's happening?
Sure, yeah. One thing that families can do, students can do, is submit a special circumstance request to Student Financial Services. The form for that can be located on our website under Documents. The special circumstance request is for situations where you have a loss of income or out-of-pocket medical expenses. But right now, with people being laid off, possibly furloughed, and experiencing just uncertainty with their job, you can ask to have your FAFSA information and your EFC reconsidered based on your new circumstances. So the special circumstance request can be really, really helpful.
Awesome. That's great. So, going through all the different scholarships, grants, loans, everything that's there as an option. Let's say a student still has a gap left over. What are some areas or places that they can look for additional outside scholarships?
Sure. So there are scholarship resources out there, which I'm sure many of you as seniors are familiar with, like the Washboard, where you can go and look for outside scholarships that you might be able to apply for. I always kind of encourage students to kind of sniff out those hidden local gems. Sometimes Rotary clubs or the local Moose Lodge, or maybe even your church, offers a small scholarship. So start looking for those, because a lot of times those smaller local scholarships might not be posted on like something like the Washboard, which is where lots of people are looking for scholarships. So those hidden gems. There's also the Independent Colleges of Washington, ICW. They offer a number of competitive scholarships for students who attend private universities in the state of Washington. The application cycle for those it should be currently open for next year. So you could look at possibly applying for those now and in subsequent years, but they're great scholarships and definitely worth putting some good effort into the applications on those. If you do receive a scholarship from your church, you may be eligible for the PLU matching scholarship, where we will match up to $1,000 scholarship if you get it from your church.
Awesome. Oh, sorry.
You go.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of resources out there, and I know some other admission counselors too have been, oftentimes we encourage the high school seniors at this point to still reach out to your high school counselors, because they may have some resources that we don't necessarily know about. We might have resources they don't know about, but definitely agree with everything that you said there, Kelly.
Yep.
You had mentioned earlier, especially in the, when you're looking at the award, you see the fall and spring, and you also briefly touched on a monthly, payment plan deal. Do students have to pay per term? Can they pay, per month? Can you kind of break down what that looks like?
So the bill for fall is due on August 25th, and the bill for spring is due on January 25th. So the total amount is due on those dates. So if you want to utilize the monthly payment plan, we work with Nelnet Campus Commerce, and you enroll with them. And you can find the link to Nelnet Campus Commerce on the Student Financial Services website. It's at plu.afford.com. And you can contract with them how much you want to do in the monthly payment plan. So if you wanted to do $5,000 or $8,000, they would submit the payment to PLU by the due date. And so then your bill with PLU is covered, but you would be making the monthly payments to Nelnet Campus Commerce. In order to enroll in that, there is a one-time enrollment fee. So to enroll for the year, it would be $60. And if a student or family wants to enroll in the monthly payment plan on a semester by semester basis, I believe it's $45 per semester. So it can be a little bit more advantageous to enroll for the year since it's just $60, but it's totally up to the family.
Awesome. Yeah, nothing that helps with giving different options and
Mhm.
seeing how people can go about breaking down their personal costs. So we really appreciate that.
Sure.
It looks like we're coming up on our last question here. So if students still have questions regarding their specific award, who should they reach out to?
They can reach out to their admissions counselor. I think at this point, is that still their first point of contact? But they can always reach out to the Office of Student Financial Services, and they can email us at sfs at sfs, the SFS email. I'm sorry, I'm getting nervous.
sfs@plu.edu.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, awesome. Definitely some good resources there. Again, just want to thank you guys real quick for anyone still here for joining us for this financial aid session. If you had your question answered, great. If you didn't get your question answered yet, then we'll be reaching out. Your counselors will be reaching out to you. Calling, emailing, texting, something along those lines to get those questions answered. So please look for that follow up because we want to make sure that you have everything that you need in order to make a decision, especially when it comes to finances. So definitely reach out in case there are other things you want to ask that you didn't think about just yet as well. The next session that we have that's going to be live will be tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. It's going to be on pre-health sciences. And so if you're interested in that area of study at all, please join us for that session. But hopefully this was some good information today. And we'll see you guys around and on the web. So thank y'all for being here and talk to you later.
Thank you.